Welcome to the Tag Talks podcast. Today I'm joined by Coach Chula Loomis. Chula, how you doing, my man?
Good, Andrew. How you doing, bro?
I'm
Good to
doing
see you.
awesome, man. Thanks for being on here. I appreciate your time. Let's just get to know you a little bit more. So just start us off with kind of where you're originally from, where you're working now, and what position you hold.
So originally from Boston, grew up in Milton, Massachusetts. Moved there when I was 3, and pretty much there till I left to go to Springfield College when I was 18, and then I came back there for about a year. Worked in the private sector for a year. Got lucky with a connection, came across my desk, got linked up, and went out and interned in Minnesota with the Vikings. And then I'm an assistant sports performance coach down here with Elon University. So I've been down here since February. So pretty much the year of 2020. Yeah.
Beautiful. And Elon, for those that don't know, is in North Carolina, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Beautiful.
I'm living in Burlington, but yeah, Elon, North
Beautiful.
Carolina.
That's awesome, man. So you mentioned it there briefly. You went to Springfield College. I know a bit about your story. I know you played some football there, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in sports, your kind of athletic history, and then that transition from athlete to coach, and when you really figured out you wanted to be a coach?
Sure. I mean, growing up, high school, I was always like, I used to say my favorite sport was the one I was playing. So football, wrestling, baseball were my 3 in high school. I did my knee, so I had an avulsion fracture my senior year. So I was on crutches for a decent. I probably, like, if you asked me then, I probably would have wanted to play baseball in college, but football just lined up, made sense I wanted to go into PT school at the time. It just made sense to go to Springfield because it was a good setup with it was a sports biology major, but I knew that the exercise science and all that stuff was unbelievable. So made that transition and then was at Springfield for 4 years, played 4 years of football. Went in as a linebacker, ended up switching over to tight end and had a pretty good experience there with that. We ended up leading. I wanted to make sure I wasn't talking anything crazy last night, but I checked the stats. In 2017, we led all 3 divisions in rushing, averaged like 435 on the ground.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, we ran the ball like 70 times a game. That's how we did it. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of transition to coach, like it kind of just made sense and fit and it just kind of rolled. It wasn't necessarily like a day that I was like, I want to get into coaching. I applied to PT school during my senior year. I always was interested in the performance side of things, but combining the rehab and my kind of deal has been, like, if you come to me, whether it's after an injury or just a client or you walk into the weight room, like I want to put you onto the field better than when I first met you or saw you, whether that's like helping you reach a potential, whether that's driving up quality performance, but just providing you value and trying to get you better to hit that potential on the field. And I mean, like I said, it just kind of made sense. I took a job in the private sector and it was like, just kind of flowed, like not like flow state type thing. Like you just get to work and you get going. And then the internships and the jobs that I've had since then have just been like some dream come true opportunities and things just kind of have meshed together and rolled. So I'm just lucky to have the opportunities that I've had and kind of have like fell into the right field, so to speak, because it just fits.
It's almost like it was all meant to be. Yeah, and you briefly mentioned a bit there about some of the internships you had, and we'll unpack that as we get going here. But I have some questions, okay? I got some questions here about Springfield College. You know, it's got a little bit of this reputation as meathead U, and it's like got this reputation of pumping out strength conditioning coaches and having this huge emphasis on sports and training and all that stuff. Like, is it fact or fiction? Like, is it really have that kind of reputation? Does it really have that culture and environment over there?
Absolutely. I mean, we preach brotherhood in terms of the football stuff, but from a perspective, the GAs that we have, like there's, you have your head coach, have the OCDC, and then it's like 8 to 10 GAs, like a couple kids that I played with the GA now. People have gone on, all across different places. The head coach of football, Tony Trisciani, is a Springfield guy. Harris Simiak, who's PJ Fleck in Minnesota, is a Springfield guy. There's plenty other guys in the football like coaching realm that have gone on places, but the strength side of things is pretty interesting because I mean, when I talked to Coach Demarco, it is weird that I had 4 different sets of performance coaches like over the 4 years. Like most places have consistency and you have the same people. But look at that list, and I went over it last night just to prep for this meeting. Like my freshman year was Scott Leach, who's at URI. Joel Gilfetter is the director of football at Fordham. Pete Rems is at Indiana football. Joel Ridenhart is at UMass Amherst football. Fahajan Donnie Vanderbilt. Andrew Field went to Holy Cross and was with the Dolphins. Coach Nickel is out with the Gophers in Minnesota. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that have gone on from there to do good things, and they do good work there as well. Oh, and I can't forget that there were 2 guys on staff here that actually coached me. So Cameron Ringsted was on staff down here, and then just took off. But it is like, it's a serious network, and all those guys that I just named are people that I've spoken to like this year a couple times. So it's a pretty cool network, one, but it's a pretty tight-knit network that when you know guys, you reach out and, you have each other's back and pick each other up. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that I kind of always heard this school popping up, and you hear all these names and you always hear it coming back to like Springfield or whatever. And it had that bit of reputation. I was always like, man, that sounds like a pretty wild place. Like for people like us who are, passionate and excited about the things that we're excited about. Because not everyone in the world is excited about the same stuff as us, but it just sounded like such a cool place with such like a strong tradition of really pumping out some studs in the S&C sports performance games. So I just wanted to hear more about that. And just off the cuff, just like, so you said you had quite a bit of turnover there, like as an athlete with your coaches on the performance side, like what was that like? Did you obviously as an athlete, you're probably exposed to, I would assume a bunch of different philosophies and that kind of stuff. Like what was that transition every year, like with a new coach, and how did you handle that as an athlete?
Because it was the norm, like it was just like, here's our guy, like we're just going to roll. Like because of where we were, like kids are asking questions, kids are wanting to know what's going on, getting coached up. Like it wasn't just like, here's a piece of paper, go run. Like kids are trying to understand it, but because there was good thought behind it, like there was guys consistently going to the Iowa internship, coming back and bringing things. Like there were guys doing good work, and we could see that, and like we would see the results too. Like it wasn't just like, guy come in, here's a program, didn't really work. Like we got stronger, we got faster pretty much every year. And there was like, even without the same set of coaches over 4 years, like kids still saw growth. And it wasn't like, it was, maybe if we had the same person at the helm of a program, it might've been different, but I don't think that we suffered because there was different groups, but it was like controlled variability, right? New in, that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
No, for sure, man. And I ask because myself personally, like when I was playing football up here in Canada at the University of Guelph, like we had a considerable amount of turnover in our S&C. In my 5 years there, we had 4 different people involved, and it was a little bit choppy. It was never really a smooth transition. I got fortunate really at the end. Our last coach that we had there, Jordan Foley, who is a huge mentor for me, he really came in and kind of reined that in and was there for a handful of years. But before that, it was just very choppy. I'll say it like that. It wasn't really a smooth transition with new coaches coming in. Everyone had very different philosophies. And as an athlete, you were just kind of sitting there with your head spinning. I mean, obviously I had maybe a leg up because I always knew this is what I wanted to do. So I had a different base level of knowledge as compared to most of my teammates, but I could see how people's heads were spinning a bit because they have this one coach who's like, this is how you train. This is what good training looks like. And then the next guy comes in and he's a 180 from that. And he's doing things completely different.
Yeah.
And then we had Jordan come in, and Jordan did things way different. But in my humble opinion, I think Jordan was doing things the best. But it was just like hard for the athletes to really like get on board with that. So I just wanted to ask him what that was like for you.
For sure.
And so
we can touch on this later too, but like, it's just similar to what we were talking about on the app yesterday. Like we do the same things, but like didn't really ever do the same thing, if that makes sense. There was consistency, like I just said, like controlled variation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you use similar methods or like similar exercises, different things like that, but might get a little bit of a different stimulus just because you're changing some things up.
Yeah. And we just we did not have that. The first coach we had, his big thing was like, it was called the Matrix. It was like this huge, long, drawn out dumbbell complex. Your warm up was dancing. You were literally dancing different ways and doing it was whack, man. It was whack. And then we went to something that was a little bit more. Awful. Yeah, it was weird. Like when you're, I was on scout team my first year. So like, I never had to do that warm up on game day, but like you're sitting in the stands and you're watching your team out on the field getting ready for a big playoff game, and they're out there dancing around. You're just kind of like, I don't feel too bad sitting in the stands today. Like those guys kind of look like idiots right now.
If you're the other team, what are you thinking? Like, we're probably gonna smoke you. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Like my best friend, he came in the same class as me. We were roommates for a long time, and he dressed as a rookie that year, and he was saying that he's like, dude, it was so demoralizing going into a game because I'm just looking down the field and these guys are looking at us thinking we're goofs. And thankfully we were a pretty good team. We went 7-1 that year, lost in the provincial finals. So like we were a good squad, but you wouldn't know that by watching us warm up.
Some remember the Titans type stuff, man.
Yeah, a little bit it was. So yeah, it was just a weird transition, and you had people from all sorts of different camps. But I guess at Springfield, with that reputation of having a really strong tradition of S&C and high level performance, I'm sure that they wouldn't tolerate that kind of stuff coming in there. Like they would rein it in a bit more, which makes those transitions from coach to coach a little easier.
It helped too, because like Dr. Thompson was unbelievable. Coach Adam, been a mentor of mine, has come back and like overseen everything and like help facilitate things. And I mean, that's done wonders for the program, is to have guys like that who help people get jobs, help people get internships, help push the program forward like that. So you're continuing to bring good people in as good people leave. But those guys kind of, having the reins and not necessarily being hands-on with everything, but being there to answer questions, facilitate, help everybody grow is, I think, what helps everything run smoothly,
For sure. And it makes the overall athlete experience better, right? But you kind of mentioned there, you guys have this big network that leads to connections. And I know after your playing career, you went into the private sector for a little bit. Where were you working?
Compete Strength and Conditioning. It's a business in Norwood, Massachusetts, about 15 minutes from my house. So about 25 minutes from Boston. Solid. What do you got for me? So.
No, I was just going to say, so you were there for a year, and then you said that that opportunity to go with the Vikings in Minnesota fell onto your lap, and you went there and interned for a bit. What was that process like, and how long were you with the Vikings, and kind of what responsibilities did you have there?
That was an unbelievable experience. Was a part of an unbelievable staff. I mean, they immensely on, like, strength and conditioning stuff, and just life, grow as a man, all that good stuff. I was there for about a year. So I was there from March of 2019 to January 2020. Help with the off season, was there for the summer when guys were coming in. And a lot of guys, take off and they spend it at home because CBA things. Obviously, they want to spend their time with their family and good things like that. But they came back and was there for camp, was there for the season, and was fortunate enough to travel to some games and spend a decent amount of time with the team. But I was an intern, right? So no program responsibilities, but lots of setup. My job was basically to make the staff look good. My director and the rest of the staff look good. So help facilitate that program, right? Speak the language he's speaking, be his eyes and ears for the things that he can't see, and just carry out the program to a T that he needed and help this thing run, because that was a championship caliber team. That was a real good football team. Yeah. And they still are, 100%, still a very, very, very good football team. But it was an unbelievable experience.
Oh, I can imagine. And just because I'm curious there. So like, what would their staffing look like? Like you said, you had the director, and then like, what did that kind of tree as it trickled down? What did their performance department look like?
Yeah. So it was the director, who's Coach Uyama, 2 assistants on staff, Derek Keys and Chaz Maley, and then 2 interns. The other intern was a guy named Austin Livingston, and then myself. So, just helping facilitate that. And they work pretty close with athletic training. It's pretty good high performance that they had out there set up.
That's amazing. So what would you say was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
How to be a pro. Like at that level, it's about winning. It's a business. You got to show up, do your job every day. With some high profile athletes and coaches, you got to show up, you got to be yourself, you got to be consistent. And then the academic side of the game, both like strength, performance, and like for the athletes, a lot of times football gets looked at as like a brute game, but like to operate at that level, like the meetings are intense, the X's and O are intense. Like you need to understand at a high level, have a high IQ to perform and to be ready to go on Sunday. And then the coaches on the performance staff have skin in the game, like been in the league for multiple years, have had extensive college careers, and been a number of different places. So, and then the last thing, just like being yourself, because people can smell fake, right? When you walk in the door, if you're trying to put on somebody else's persona or the way you communicate, like you got to be yourself. Now, I might be speaking a little bit of the language of the staff and what we need to get done, but like if you're not yourself, like you're not going to be effective and you won't communicate effectively. So my biggest takeaway is be a pro, be a good dude, be consistent, and be you. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, like people can cut through bullshit. Grown men that are millionaires, like they'll cut through your bullshit right away. Like they're not there to play no games, right? So you got to truly show up and be authentic every day.
It's about winning, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
man.
all it is.
Yeah. No, and that's so cool. And what an unbelievable experience for you as a young coach, as you're kind of cutting your teeth in the industry, to be able to have that experience and see what it truly looks like at the highest level, right? And the NFL, like that is kind of the pinnacle of sports really in North America, some might say. But then you get into this transition over to Elon. So earlier on this year, you said around February, late January was when you made that transition to Elon. Like why Elon? How did that come about? And what's that experience been like for you over the last, 9 months?
Just about, 9 months. So Joel Ridenhart, he was one of my strength coaches going into my senior year at UMass Amherst right now. We had been on and off connecting. He came back because he's from Minnesota. So this is kind of funny. He came back for Christmas last year, hit me up, went and got some food, just chopped it up, talked life, strength and conditioning, performance, all that good stuff. And he hit me up after we played the Saints, I want to say, and was like, hey, I got something. Would you be interested in a position down at Elon? And I was like, absolutely, yeah. Touch base with Coach Demarco, a couple texts, had a couple phone calls that were exchanged, and the Vikings actually drafted a tackle from Elon named Oli Udo. And he came down to the weight room one day. I was like, oh, I got a text about you. And I was like, yeah, what'd you tell him? Like, what'd you say? He was like, basically, you suck at your job and you're you're awful. And I was like, hey, at least you shot him straight. At least you told him.
Yeah.
He was like, no, actually, I said it would be a good fit. All this stuff, good conversation. And then, within a week later, it was basically packing my stuff up and heading down there. And then we figured everything else out when I got down there. And I knew it was a good opportunity, come work with a good football team, a good staff. I mean, Coach Demarco has built something down here that is pretty globally known. I mean, obviously, you're out and just participating in that internship. He's got people from all over tuning in, and the social media brand that he's built and the things that he's been able to do in a short amount of time. Like, I can't speak his praise enough.
Yeah, no. And that's where we met, right? Like, so, early on after the COVID shutdown happened, Elon was hosting kind of this virtual internship. And I wasn't able to coach my athletes or run my gym, and I didn't want to sit at home and get bored. So I signed up, and it was Coach Demarco that attracted me there. He's a really smart thinker. I've listened to a handful of podcasts. I've dived in on all the info that you guys have put out through the YouTube, the Elon Sports Performance page. He's just like a really smart dude. So that's kind of what attracted me down there, was to try and have the opportunity to learn more from him. And then I was, fortunate enough to meet some smart cats like yourself and the other staff down there. And it was a great experience. You guys brought in a absolute star-studded lineup for speakers, and it was
I enjoyed that. Please, that wasn't just about y'all. That was unbelievable.
It was amazing. So here's where I'm going to get you with some hard questions, man. Hopefully, at least. So what I think is so cool about your experience so far as a coach is, like, you've been in the private sector, you've went to the pros as an intern, you've now back in the university sector. Like, you've been at pretty much the three levels that we have in this industry, right? What have been like some of the contradictions that you've seen or conflicting things that you've seen from all these three spots, and how has that kind of changed the way you look about things? If any, you might not have seen any real contradictions. I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah. I don't know if there's necessarily contradictions, but I feel like sometimes we get caught up in logos and assuming that because of the logo, people are doing great things. Like, at the highest level, people are doing great things, right? and at places you've never heard of, people are doing great things. At that FBS, all in between, there's good people doing good work. Now, on the flip side, right, there's people in a tight T-shirt on the sidelines, banging their heads and making a show of stuff. So, but it's just important for us to see that, like, there is science-based practice and people who are good people doing great things, growing good programs, building good men and women, right? Because obviously we're talking about football a lot, but there's a whole nother side of things that we haven't really, touched on or anything like that. But, there's people doing good things everywhere. And at the end of the day, like, it's about working back from the game, building people. It doesn't matter if it's the best back in the NFL, if it's a junior running back from Georgia who's trying to get to that point, or if it's high school kid that you're working with. Just about treating people with respect, because at the end of the day, they're all people. It doesn't matter what level you're at. And just helping them grow, like we talked about in the beginning, right? Like trying to get people onto the field better than when they came into you. Like, that's the name of the game right there.
No, and that's good. And again, like I ask a lot of these questions just because I'm genuinely curious, right? With experience at all these different levels, I want to know, like, have you seen different things? Have you, sat there and scratched your head being like, you know what, I saw the Vikings doing this, and why are we doing this over here at Elon, or vice versa, or whatever. So I just wanted the opportunity to kind of ask that and see what you saw and how that's kind of helped you in your maturation as a coach.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of similarities, to be honest, in terms of, using a true high performance model where, we're not siloed up athletic training, performance, like working together. Coach Demarco has done a really good job of doing that down here. High, low in the athletes, the use of tempos. They use tempos. I didn't understand, I guess, the variation, the variety, the ability to use tempos on such a grand scale and to scale things, right? And just be able to apply them to the demands of the game so specifically. Like, you can work above and below the demands of the game. You just got to kind of reverse engineer the sport first, understand what's going on, and then be able to plug things in from there. But things weren't as different. There's obviously some specifics that were going on in Minnesota, but things were very, very similar. You know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, in a program like that.
And to be honest, that's kind of the answer that I expected, right? I obviously, like I've already alluded, that I think very highly of Coach Demarco. So it's not like I was necessarily expecting there to be this vast difference, but I thought it was a worthy question nonetheless. And kind of on that same topic, I think I've asked you something similar to this in a previous conversation, but you just mentioned the tempos and the variation, all this different stuff. But what has been like the biggest thing that you've learned or taken away from Coach Demarco or any of the other staff members there at Elon?
I mean, Coach Demarco's a sharp dude. It's such a growth-minded staff. Like, Coach Demarco grinds himself physically, always pushing himself to get better mentally. So, like, if we're not, then we're just, like, not doing what we're supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? He pushes the staff forward. I've learned so much from him and this staff, because he's prepping staff to move on, get part-time, go get a full-time assistant position. You're one of his assistants. He wants to prep you to be a director. So I've learned a ton about being a director, the thought process that goes into that. And just putting people, he puts us in positions to be successful, right? But also puts us in positions where we need to speak our minds, right? Evaluate ourselves and be able to grow based off of what we're saying. Like, we have tough conversations, and not necessarily tough conversations, but conversations where we're bouncing ideas off. We might not agree, but the point of that is just to get things circulate. Okay, explain. What are you thinking? Like, why do you think like that? The first meeting I had when I came down here, it was before I was had officially started working. He was like, come on in, we got a staff meeting. And I didn't really expect to say much. Like, I thought, I'd be there in the room and we'd be talking, and he writes up like a morphocycle on the board. He goes, all right, passes the marker to the first person. And then he goes, write up how you would break down a training walk over the summer for football. And just go. People looking at him, and he just sits there, arms crossed, and say a damn thing. Just putting people to have a chance, have the pen in their hand, go up there. A couple other people go up, like, oh, actually, I would do it like this. Just the kind of dude who, one, like I said, puts people in the opportunities to be successful, but, allows them the opportunity to think, be critical, and then go ahead and grow from that as well. So perspective on a lot of things.
That's unreal. And that's really like that true collaboration, right? You're giving everyone the opportunity to say, and it's not necessarily whatever you write on the whiteboard is going to happen, but it leads to a really good conversation. Okay, why are you thinking like that? And then you might explain your answer, and then someone else chimes in, and then you get like this awesome conversation rolling. And then all of a sudden you guys might come up with something that none of you could have came up with individually, but once all those brains are kind of in the room together and throwing things out there, you can come up with some pretty cool stuff. And that's the one
100%.
thing that I'm like so jealous of is I'm like this freaking lone wolf. I always have been like, and it's not really like that was my goal. I would love to be in an environment where I have the opportunity to collaborate with people every day. And it's just not the case, right? Like I took over after my playing career was done, like pretty much within 6 months. Like I was the strength coach for the football team that I just finished playing for. And I was on my own 22 to try and figure it out. And then I go into the private sector and I'm running my own business. And now I'm over at the University of Waterloo and I'm doing it by myself. And, I'm having fun. But that's the one thing that I've always missed is like to be in that room with all these other people with that like-minded folks and just bounce ideas off each other. And that's why when you guys were throwing together that virtual internship, I'm like, yo, finally, here's my opportunity. Let's go. Let's get in this group and let's chat it out and let's have some fun. And through that, me and you had some great conversations. I mean, the way we had it set up, I didn't get to have as much overlap time with any of the other staff that you guys had there, but man, that was just such a great opportunity for me. And I was so grateful to be able to be involved in that and learning and getting exposed to what you guys are doing down there. Cause I truly think you guys are doing something great.
Yeah. Do you have an opportunity? Like, could you put out for an intern or something like that? Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to grab some assistance, coach somebody up and get them rolling with you.
Yeah. I actually just got my first intern 2 weeks ago. So we're just getting him fired up. He's going to be good, man. He's going to be good. He'll probably listen to this, so he's going to hear this, but don't let it go to your head, buddy. But he's going to be good, man. He asked unreal questions. Like his first day, like he was asking questions and I was like, damn, that's a good question, man. That's a really good question. And so I'm really, really looking forward to finally having that. And it is, there's some pressure on me now, right? Because I am the mentor and I got to try and bring this kid along. And it's like, hey, buddy, like, man, I've been doing this on my own for 5 years. And guess what? I made a ton of mistakes. So my goal is to get you, like, we're going to skip all those steps.
Get him coached up. It's a good thing that you say he's asking good questions too, because there definitely is such thing as a stupid question.
Oh, for sure there is. And that's really where you can gauge where people are at by the questions that they ask, right? Like
100%.
I'm sure
that's what we just talked about with the group that we had. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was one of the things kind of in that first meeting that we had. I like to think that some of the questions that I was asking were decent. And that was, I think, why we gravitated towards each other right away. Cause you're just like, okay, yeah, this can be a good conversation. And we bounce things off and back and forth. And that's what it's all about, man. It's just like, there is not just one right answer. There's the 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And it's always, what is the right exercise, right program at the right time for the right athlete, and being open to really, like you said, kind of seeing the situation and working back from that. And that's kind of where it's at. So I guess this leads us to this next question, man. Like what's next for you?
I'm going to be taking off from North Carolina, headed back to snowy Massachusetts, but heading back up to Boston, back to the private sector place that I was formerly at, back up to strength and conditioning. I'll be one of the head performance coaches up there, be directing the football performance stuff. So I'm excited to get back up there and take all of these things that I've learned. It sucks to be leaving Elon. It's such a good opportunity and such a good staff, and I've learned and grown so much. But I'm excited to put all of these things that I've learned these past couple of years, being on the road a little bit, and roll with that for a year or two, and then see. Ideally, I'd like to be back in the team game as a director, right? Whether it be at the college level with football or back in the NFL. But that's kind of my game plan. Go learn some more, go grow, go put some things into practice, and see what kind of work we can do. And
just remind me again what that spot's called that you're going back to in the private sector?
Compete, strength and conditioning. Yep.
So you said you're going to be heading up the football, which is I'm sure pretty exciting for you. You're back in your old stomping grounds. You're going back to a place where you kind of started your career. What kind of athletes are you guys working with over there? Primarily high school, university, a little bit of a split? Like, tell me a bit more about Compete.
A little bit of a split. High school, college athletes. Right now, with a lot of the college athletes either being home or like just being in this in-between period, I think there's a decent amount of them, more so than there would be normally, obviously, because they'd be at school. But a large amount of high school athletes. There's a couple. We got an NHL ref mixed in there. We got amateur fighter mixed in there who's trying to get going. But some good athletes coming out of there. It's actually a very lacrosse and hockey heavy gym. I mean, you got all your sports in the private sector, obviously, but a kid just signed to Penn State the other day. I mean, there's kids from Villanova, like there's kids from all over the place for lacrosse. So definitely trying to grow that football brand and get some kids some help there a little bit for sure.
That's awesome, man. So, it's just a little bit of a pivot for you, right? Like you've been to all these different spots and that's the one benefit of being in the private sector. And that's what I enjoy is that you get that kind of diversity of what you get to work with, right? I've got some kids as young as 13 and I've got some of the guys that I have the opportunity to work with are like 20 in their mid 20s playing professional football. So that's the cool part of being in that private sector is you get that full spectrum of athletes and it's just a lot of fun. So I think that'll be cool for you with the experience you've had to kind of go back there and get that full gamut of opportunity to work with everyone at their individual level and from different sports.
100%, dude. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you, and I'll definitely continue to follow along on your journey, and we'll keep chatting back and forth, which is always fun. And we'll see what you can do over there, man. I know you're going to do some good things, and I'm excited to see that go on for you.
That's the game plan. You got to come down and visit, or I'll get up there. I don't know.
Dude, when I've like
actually travel,
I've been talking to all these people, and it's like, man, once this like COVID thing kind of sorts itself out, like I'm taking some time off. I'm going on a big roadie. I got some people I got to go meet and get together with. But
huge roadie.
We'll set that up one of these days, man. We'll get in a lift. We'll talk some shop in person, have some fun. So, is there anything else here you want to say before we start to kind of wrap this up here?
Not too much, man. I mean, what's next for you? I feel like you've been asking all the questions.
Hey, man, I think that's kind of my job. I don't really know how to do this stuff. I just kind of make it up as I go. But next for me, man, it's just continue to I'm about 2.5 months in getting settled over at the University of Waterloo with their football team over there. So we're just starting to get that rolling. The guys are great with COVID, and all the restrictions and stuff. We got half our team kind of scattered throughout. So there's still some of the guys that I haven't had the opportunity to work with in person. So we're just trying to get that thing rolling. But it's been so fun for me to get back into the team setting where I was in the team setting and left in early 2018 and have been in the private sector ever since. So it's nice to get back in there and that it's just so much fun, right? When you're in that team setting, it's so dynamic. I forgot how chaotic it can be at times with that many guys, but love it and absolutely love it. So we're just going to get that rolling and keep building that thing up and up. And I'm really happy with how that's going. And then just continue to try and grow my gym, grow my business and keep helping more athletes, man. There's some few things that are in the pipeline where if it all works out, there's could be some exciting stuff coming up, but it's just taking it day by day, right? It's just, man, just keep your head down and work and have fun while you do it. And realize how fortunate you are to be able to do what you get to do, right? Like 100%. That's the one thing. I don't think I've really ever took coaching for granted, but man, when I had to close my gym and I can't work with the guys and I can't work with my athletes and do what I love, like, man, the second I could open it up again, it's like, man, life is good. And you got to really just enjoy the process of it, which is like the stuff we say to athletes all the time, but just enjoy it, man. Life's too short. It can all be taken away just like that. So just go out there, do your best and have fun and enjoy the ride. And at the end of it, you'll find yourself in a place where you're like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm pretty damn happy.
If there's anything that 2020 has taught us is that shit can change in 5 seconds. Like, you have no idea how it's going to go. So tell me, is there a goal for you to make that business like fully functioning without you and then hop on over to the team game?
I don't know. Honestly, I think about that all the time. My girlfriend's asked me, the intern that I got has asked me, my parents have asked me, and I say, I don't know. I really don't. I'm not a control freak, but I just love that balance of having my feet in both. But if it ever got to the point where the quality was dropping on either, then I would make I'd make a decision. But just with the way things are at right now, I've always kept my business pretty tight. I've never really mass marketed or opened it up to anyone. So it's a tight little group of serious athletes that are ready to kick ass. And I've always kept that controllable so that the quality doesn't slip. So I'm getting close to the point where I probably can't expand too much more without the quality going down. So that's what's super exciting about having this intern with me, is like, he might just be helping me at both. Like, he might not just be at my gym or at the university. Like, man, you might just come back and forth with me at both, and we're just going to go build something and kill it.
That's a good internship, dude. You get your 2 hats on in one deal.
Exactly. And then that way I don't really ever have to take, my hand out of either pot. I can kind of, bring him along and show him kind of the ropes on how you balance both the private sector and the team setting, which is a great opportunity for him, like you said. But I also kind of selfishly get to keep my hands in both and lean on him to kind of support that, so that the quality stays where we want it. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But yeah, the goal is to eventually just keep growing the business and get to a point, but I don't know if I'd ever really want to extract myself from it, man. I just love it too much. I love it too much.
It's a good problem.
It is a good problem, man. So you talk about this cool network that you've been able to build over the years. I love having these talks with you. Like I kind of half jokingly said, I kind of started this podcast because my girlfriend was sick and tired of listening to me talk about training and sports performance and all this stuff. So who are some other guests or people that I should reach out to and try and have on and have some cool conversations with them?
I mean, I'm surprised you got me, man. You got some good people on this lineup. I mean, Coach Demarco, Jordan Newsma on staff down here, Cam Ringstead on staff down here would be good to have. A couple guys from my BU internship. Tim Murray is at Denver. Ben Morse was at BU for a number of years, and now he's with Iowa football. Pete Rems with Indiana football would be a good guy to talk to. I mean, anybody on that list I could keep going, but I'll give you those names for now and just recommend you reach out to those guys. And if you need me to, I'll do the same. And we'll see.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And the thing that I love about kind of asking that question is, people always recommend some people that I've heard of or followed and learned from and all this stuff. But I love it when there's someone I've never heard of before. And then I go and check them out and you're like, oh dude, this guy's kicking ass over where he's at doing his thing. Like, I want to talk to this guy. I want to get to know this person. Like, cause that's the thing. Like when you're in this coaching world, not everyone kind of gets it, but the second you meet someone who's also in it, like you have that bond and you can just kind of pick up and have that talk. And my last guest that I had on, Tony Holler, like we were joking about that at the beginning. We're like, yeah, we don't know each other, but we have this common bond through coaching. We could sit here and talk for 6 hours. And we easily could have, and we could easily do the same here today. So
100%.
If people want to learn more from you, learn more about you, follow you along on your journey, where can people check you out?
I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter. You can follow me at c.loomis, just a period, C Loomis, Loomis, and then Chula Loomis on Twitter.
Perfect, man. Well, I'll make sure that I link all that stuff there in the show notes. Dude, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It always is. I'm so excited for you as you go through this transition period, and let's stay in touch, man, and keep killing it, brother.
You too, man. Keep rolling up in Waterloo, and I'm excited to hear how you do balancing both of those hats.
Yeah, well, let's hope I can do it.
You're smooth. You're good.
We got it, man. Thank you again for your time. Okay, stay on here. Let's chat for a bit after we're done.
All right, brother.